You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. England fall to a 5-wicket defeat in the fourth test in Ranchi to slip to an unassailable 3-1 deficit ahead of next week's fifth and final test in Dharamshala. We'll hear exclusively from England captain Ben Stokes and England head coach Brendon McCullum. New Zealand cricket commentator Dan McHardy joins us to look ahead to this week's test series between New Zealand and Australia, which gets underway in Wellington this week. And we'll get the Aussie viewpoint as well from Jarrod Kimber. And Multan Sultans bowling coach Cath Dalton reflects on a positive start for her franchise in her first season working in the PSL. And as always, we'll bring you the final word. So plenty to come over the next hour or so. You're listening to Following On. Well, it was tight, it was exciting, it was gripping. England really made a game of it, but there were a number of places where they slipped up, Harmy, and as always, we shouldn't focus on that last session and the last day, the fourth day. England did take 5 wickets, but being bowled out for 145, and I think not being able to knock over the Indian tail. They began day 3 with a lead of 134, only 3 wickets to take, and that deficit, when it was reduced down to 46, all of these are talking points on which the match may have turned.
Yeah, no, there's been a couple of test matches now where you can see at this point the match turned. I think the match turned. Kuldeep Yadav walked out to the crease with the bat, and when he walks out to the crease with the bat, you're thinking that's it. England can't lose from here, and I think from that point India won it. I didn't think so much England lost it. I think India won it. I think Jarrod played a beautiful innings, a fantastic innings to marshal the tail. Kuldeep Yadav faced over 130 balls. They stuck about, they hung around, they held England at bay, got it down to 46. England made a few mistakes, but I don't think they could have done too much more than they kept going, they kept trying, striving to get the wicket, and then India won it again from there. Ashwin comes on to bowl, gets Duckett out, gets Root out, gets Bairstow out. I think it was Bairstow? I think it was Bairstow he got out. He got Root. What did he get? He got Pope. He got Duckett, Pope and Root out in a short space of time. And Ashwin, Jadeja on that wicket with a bit of Kuldeep Yadav. It was always going to be difficult. You go down the sort of great spin bowlers, and he is a great spin bowler of all time, Ashwin. Remember going back to 2005, England 38 for none in the fourth Test match at Trent Bridge. You bring Shane Warne on, and we win by 2 runs. If they bring him on earlier, they win the game. But Warne had this way of, right, the game's mine now. I'm going to change it. Murley, game's mine. I'm going to change it. Ashwin gets a tap on the shoulder from the captain. You're opening a bowling here. I need you to stand up. I need you to get me early wickets. I can't let England to get off to a good start. A 50-run lead is still a big lead on this surface. And what does Ashwin do? He has England 60 for 3, and that's what greatness does. So Ashwin Jadeja on that wicket. I'm so proud of this England cricket team. I really am. I said this in the following on after the show. When anybody says to me Bazball doesn't work in India, nonsense. It does, and it's not. And Bazball's not about the way they play as in aggressive 6s and 4s and everything like that. It's about mentality. England 2 years ago mentality, not having to go at Silverwood or Joe, but England's mentality 2 years ago would it be 4-0 down now. With the team that they've got, the game plan they had. For me, the Test match they were out, they won in Hyderabad. And that's down to mentality. And I think there will be people who play the perfect game. I've heard a couple of former colleagues of mine, really criticising about, is it about winning or is it about, entertaining? Well, there's a mentality that you go out on the field with. And I think this is the best mentality to go out on the field with. Yes, they've come up short, but let's be fair. Nothing against Bashir and Hartley, who bowled their hearts out. They're in the same game as Ashwin and Jadeja. And for me, there was only one winner in that contest, and that's Ashwin and Jadeja. So I think England lost it from when Kuldeep Yadav walked out to bat. He hung around a bit. Jarrod played the great innings, and Ashwin and Jadeja, along with Kuldeep, did what excellent spinners did. They got themselves in a position to win the game, and England just fell a little bit short.
Well, Tom Hartley wasn't expected to be consistent. I mean, I think he's there because of his ability to bowl wicket-taking balls, and he did bowl plenty of those. Shoaib Bashir, I think, completed or is on the verge of completing a journey from boy cricketer to man cricketer. I mean, his transition and development throughout the series has been extraordinary. But more from them, or from you on them in a moment. Let's hear from England captain Ben Stokes. He was talking after the Test match to our man on the ground, Cameron Ponsonby.
Ben Stokes, a great Test match that England were unfortunately on the wrong side of. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to sum it up. Another great Test match to be a part of. Even though it's only gone 4 days, another game that sort of went down to the wire, albeit finishing a day early. But yeah, great to be a part of it. I think each day just ebbed and flowed so much. And yeah, I think you look at some periods where could things have happened a bit different, but I think yesterday when it was our turn to bat, especially in that afternoon session with Jadeja, Ashwin and Kuldeep bowling, it was very, very tough for us to not only to be able to score but also to rotate the strike. And when you come out to India and you face conditions like that, that's where you see the class of the opposition. So you've got to give a lot of credit to the way in which they capitalise on sort of spin-friendly conditions, and it was very tough for us.
All good things have to come to an end. This is you and Brendon's first series loss as a pair. How are you feeling?
I'm fine. I'm good. We don't really concentrate too much on that because it's the thing is my message has always been consistent throughout since I've taken over. I've been doing it for 2 years now, and taking each game as it comes, and as long as we're putting as much as we possibly can as individuals into what the team collective sort of ethos is, then everything else will look after itself. And obviously 3-1 down doesn't look well if you read it like that, but everyone who's walked down that field has thrown absolutely everything at India. And the performances of Shoaib Bashir in particular in this Test match, Tom Hartley throughout the whole series, I think is great, and I think we've unearthed some real talent there as well.
You mentioned Bashir. When England took 2-2 there to get India 5 down, from the sidelines I couldn't help but notice just how much fun it looked out there. What's it like playing in the 4th innings of a Test match, defending a small total? Is that as good as it gets as an international cricketer?
It is, yeah. And it's what I mentioned last night. I think with on a pitch where obviously spin was going to be our way of winning this Test match, to have Bash in his 2nd Test match, Tom only in his 4th. There was obviously there could have easily been some anxiety, some anxiousness around tomorrow about coming out and bowling India out, but. I told them that what an opportunity, walking out on the field for England, trying to bowl out India, how you handle those emotions is what it's about. And I think the way in which they operated today was awesome. That not once did they drop their shoulders, not once did they look like we were defeated. And that's what you want as a captain. That's all you want to see from your players. Even when it got down to 20-15 into the teens, we still looked like we were only a bang away just because of what the wicket was doing. And great attitude throughout the whole Test match.
Your messaging, as you said, has been very consistent over the past 2 years. Do you think it will be a new challenge for you to have to motivate players to get up for what is effectively a dead rubber, or is the kind of achievement of winning any Test match in India enough to keep the group going?
Winning any Test match anywhere in the world at any given point in any series is what it's about, and that's why staying just so in the moment about taking it game by game. Yes, we've got the opportunity to win the series 3-2, but we've got an opportunity to go out and represent your country again, and we've got an opportunity to go out and have another Test match win for England. So, the best result for us is 3-2. Still lost the series, but you take each game as they come, and you want to win every game you play.
Ollie Robinson didn't have a bowl in the 4th innings. Was that a purely tactical decision?
Well, yeah. Look, it was going to be spin that gave us the chance to win this game. Jimmy's got Rohit out a couple of times early on, this series, so that was probably the first and the only opportunity I felt that seam was actually going to play a part, and he only bowled a short spell, so then we got the spin back involved.
So there's no injury concerns around Robinson at all at the moment?
No.
And finally, you've got a week off until Dharamshala. What's the plans?
Look, I think we've got a couple of guys going off to Bangalore. We've got a nice break, and then a couple of us just going into Chandigarh. So, a chance to get away and sort of have another break like we did earlier on the series, and then recharge the batteries and get going again from Dharamshala. So
same as Abu Dhabi, cricket bats to one side for a week, then come back fit and ready to go.
Yeah, look, we're going into the 5th Test match of a series here. We've been out here a long time now. Practice as always is very intense for us. There's no worries about going away, putting the cricket kit to one side and then focusing again.
So just one more. yesterday there's been a bit more umpiring controversy across this test match. Yesterday with Joe Root's dismissal, today with Tom Hartley's kind of review against Jaiswal. What are your thoughts on the two incidents?
There's no point saying anything really, because you just get nailed for it. Everyone's allowed an opinion, and yeah, what's the point?
Perfect. Thanks very much, Ben.
Thanks.
It was England skipper Ben Stokes having a chat to Cam Ponsonby, our man on the ground, after England's loss, India's victory by 5 wickets. As I said, the selection of the two spinners was brave. I mean, it was having the courage of your convictions. It was not having a fear of things going wrong. It's thinking about winning, and I think the two spinners have done a terrific job.
I think they have.
And Rian Ahmed.
I think Rian Ahmed as well. It'd be interesting. It was interesting the conversation Shoaib Bashir had to the media at the end of, I think, day 3 was it, when he spoke to the media, or whatever day he spoke to the media, and I think he was more or less indicating that. I think Cameron asked him about getting the nod over Rian, but I think he more or less said, well, if Rian was here, he would have played, and Rian went home. But even so, I think the two of them have bowled admirably well, along with Rian Ahmed's all-round package, along with Tom Hartley's all-round package, bat, ball and field. I think they've done as good as everybody expected them to. Actually, no, I'll rephrase that. I think they've done better than everybody expected them to. These have come here and got India worried. It got India flustered. Fair enough, it's not the stellar Kohli and KL Rahul who are missing in that middle order along with Rishabh Pant. But I think Bashir and Hartley have really, really stood up and come of age as cricketers. And I think stand them in good steads, because they'll come here the next time and they'll come here the time after because of the age they're at. I think they've done a brilliant job. And not only have they done a job, Stokes has done a brilliant job by managing them. And I think England's all-round field and experience has been very, very good and very, very positive. So there's been a lot of good boxes ticked for me. And I think when people will say, yes, they've made some brainless mistakes, they've made some mistakes at times where you can't try and fathom them out, I will say to them people, you can't play the perfect game. You can't have one without the other. I don't think you can play that perfect game the way the mentality of this group is. But the one thing I will say is, if this mentality will win more games than it'll lose, unfortunately. You might have to take a couple of losses, but these guys going back in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time, when it comes back, the experience for this time this makes this group a lot better.
Well, we're going to enjoy an 8-day break now before that 5th Test match in Dharamshala, so we'll be able to talk next week about possible selection, but it will be interesting to see whether Gus Atkinson has given an opportunity on a pitch that is expected to be more seamer friendly than any of the 4 that preceded it. Okay, you're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison, as we continue to look back at the 4th Test between India and England in Ranchi. Next up, we'll get more reaction from the England camp and hear from head coach Brendon McCullum. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And a reminder, you can now watch us as well, if you're not doing so already, on YouTube. Head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and don't forget to subscribe. Okay, Harmy, before we go any further, let's hear from Brendon McCullum, who has made it a habit of only speaking to the media following defeat, which is understandable because he wants the captain and the players to take credit for the many victories that England have enjoyed since he became head coach. Here's Brendon McCullum speaking to Cameron Ponsonby.
I think it's a matter of motivation. These guys are incredibly determined to be as good as what they can for England, and obviously every time we go out there to play, we try and go out to hopefully ultimately win the game, but at the same time our message is around trying to give these guys as much freedom as possible to go out and be the best version of themselves, and try and allow their skill and their talent to come out. So that messaging won't change. Obviously it is disappointing when you do lose a series, but we've still got something to look forward to, and that's a game at Dharamshala where we get an opportunity to hopefully just recalibrate the scoreline a little bit.
England Test coach Brendon McCullum chatting to our man on the ground, Cameron Ponsonby. So no massive surprises there from McCullum, Harmy. I mean, he is super positive, and that's the attitude that he encourages amongst the rest of the coaching staff. We've heard from Jeetan Patel in some really bleak times, and you wouldn't have thought so coming from his fellow Kiwi. But yeah, his philosophy about the game and about the format it will never change. You would think. I mean, he's just super positive, and England will continue to try to win at every turn.
Yeah, and that's why I've been, I've had to eat some humble pie a little bit when watching this side and the way they've gone about their business, and they've gone about their preparation and gone about trying to beat India in India, which is always going to be a tall order. I like McCullum when he comes out and speaks after the lose. I think that's brilliant. I really do, because why take attention away from the team when they win? You might as well let the team have their say. You don't really need, for me, you don't need the coach to tell people how good the team are when you can get the word from the group themselves. So again, we talk about this mentality of that McCullum brings to this group, and I think in the 4 test matches we've played so far, England have been in the test series. England have been in the test series in all 4 matches. Now, how many times have we gone into a series in India where 4 matches in we are still in the we not still in the test series, because obviously we've lost 3-1, but we were in all 4 matches. We have had a chance of in all 4 games where we've had good passages of play, we've been positivity, we've ended gears strong, and had a chance where you think, right, England have got a good chance of winning this game. The only one really was the one that we actually won, and we were 190 runs behind. So that's why I think this philosophy works so much better. And yes, there will be bumps in the road, and there has been. But while McCullum and Stokes are leading this team, going to India was always going to be a tall order. But if you stick with the positive mentality, for me, you give yourself the best chance.
Again, the 5th Test match won't have started by the time we talk again in a week's time. But just looking from this distance, this far out, let's talk about Ollie Robinson, but also Gus Atkinson. If Dharamshala is seamer friendly, and if Jimmy Anderson, he's got a quad injury at the moment, that's why he didn't field on the last day in Ranchi. So if he is or isn't available, it looks like there will be at least a place for one other seamer, if not 2. Ollie Robinson looked ineffective. It didn't bowl on the last day at all in the Indian second innings. And I wonder, he's medium pace, briskish medium pace. England have already got Chris Wokes as an England conditioned specialist. Is Ollie Robinson an overseas type bowler? Is he going to be effective, or do England, are they better off looking ahead and picking Gus Atkinson?
I don't want to stick the boot into Ollie Robinson, because I think there's quite a few people, including myself before, have stuck huge size 12s into Ollie Robinson. He doesn't help himself sometimes by the way he turns up. He's pulled out of 2 or 3 big test matches, big test series. I keep getting to this. Is he at a crossroads in his career? He's 30 years old. There's no question about his ability. If I'm picking on paper the best bowlers for England, in England, or in any conditions away from home, Ollie Robinson's in it. As a bowler. But that's just his first spell. He's bowling 77 miles an hour. If his second spell goes to 76 and 75 and 74, and we've seen his average speed in this test match is 124, 76 miles per hour, he can't get any lower than that, because then he becomes ineffective. And that is something that comes down to fitness, that comes down to durability. And if you're worried that, for me, if you're going to have somebody with a question mark on their fitness like that, he has to be a gun bowler. Jofra Archer, gun bowler. Mark Wood, you put up with him being injured every now and again because 95 mile an hour. You can't teach that. You can't buy that. Ollie Robinson, I think you can buy, because, like you say, you've got Chris Wokes, and I really wanted Ollie Robinson to spend that time between July, when he hasn't played, and coming to India. And I really hoped that he's gone, right, average 22 in Test cricket. I've played enough games now to get 50 wickets. Stuart Broad's just retired. I'm 30 years old. I'm not playing franchises around the world. I play and just mirror Stuart Broad's career. Play half a dozen games throughout, 4 games throughout the year for Sussex, like Brodie does for Notts. Play 10 Test matches in a year. Of a 16 or a 15 year schedule, and do that for 4 years. And if he does that, you get 50 wickets a year, 60 wickets a year. This kid is a talented boy. But it's easy saying that. You've actually put the work in and the hard work in to do it. Me and you spoke at length at lunchtime about penny dropping for me when I met one of my influences in my career. And I never looked back from that because I learned what it was to be like to be a professional sportsman. Is Ollie at that point? I think he's past that point because he's 30 years old. Where at England they've given him a 2-year contract, so they're telling him that we want you, but if you keep turning up for a tour and you bowl 13 overs and you can't bowl for the rest of the day, and there must have been something in it. Ben Stokes has said Ollie Robinson was fit to bowl. Then why didn't you bowl him? You were running out of time. You're running out of ideas at the end of the game, trying to make the game a result. Then why didn't you bowl him? Jimmy Anderson off the field. Does he go to Dharamshala and play Ollie Robinson? If you're going to play 3 seamers, he probably does play because you have a comfort blanket. Before this Test match, there was talk about Ollie Robinson being the only seamer. And I got laughed at when people said, "Oh, you're just picking on Ollie Robinson again." Because there was no way you could pick Ollie Robinson and 3 spin bowlers, and that for me is, I think, what you're dealing with Ollie. There's unbelievable talent, but I think until the penny of actually what it takes to be the bowler he needs to be day in, day out, then we're always going to be having this conversation. I hate myself for saying it because I was in that position once before, but I'm sorry. It has to be said. I'm not questioning the bowler. I'm questioning, the preparation and the mentality of the player to want to be on the field all the time and go through the hard work to be that player. Because I'm not saying this on a whim. I'm saying this because this is 3 times now in 3 big series. Your captain turns to you to throw you the ball, and you're probably not in the best position physically to actually bowl with it.
Nobody is better qualified than you to comment because you have been there. And final word goes to India. We haven't said nearly enough about the success which they have thoroughly deserved. Well captained towards the end of the series by Rohit Sharma. Not so good in the first couple of Test matches, but without Virat Kohli, without Mohammad Shami, they could even afford to rest the number 1 bowler in the world, Jasprit Bumrah, for the 4th Test in Ranchi, and they still won. In Dhruv Jurel, the keeper, they seem to have found a real good one, a long-term one. And you know what? There's been nothing lucky about India's victory, and they thoroughly deserve to have won the series.
Yeah, they have. They've played the big moments, and they've played the big moments very well. They've unearthed an absolute superstar in Jaiswal at the top of the order. Jurel looks as though he's going to be a player. I think the jury's still out on Sarfraz. I can't see Patitar playing another Test match. 52 from Shubman Gill today will feel like 150 for getting his team over the line and winning. That could be his sort of coming to the party Test match cricket, a moment where his career defining moment is, and it's only 52, but it was in a winning cause. But I think it's been a great contest between 2 sides who are wanting to try and win, wanting to try and give to their players to be the best versions of themselves. And do you know what? I think it's so refreshing watching Test match cricket the way these 2 sides have played. So the result's going to be India, obviously, because they're 3-1 up, and it might be 4-1, it might be 3-2. But I think the takeaway by the end of the next Test match will be what an unbelievable series it is by 2 teams playing a beautiful brand of cricket.
You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former number 1 bowler in the world, Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll turn our attention to a huge Test series across the other side of the world as New Zealand host Australia starting this week, and we'll get the view from both camps. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And if you missed any of the show or you wish to catch up, you can download the podcast, as always, from the Following On feed, available from the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, as one series comes to an end, or at least the result does, England going down 3-1 to India with a Test to play, we have another one to look forward to, and it is the mouth-watering prospect of the Trans-Tasman rivalry. New Zealand will be hosting Australia in a couple of Test matches in the World Test Championship. And our old friend and colleague Daniel McHardy joins us late at night from New Zealand to look forward to a series. Many, many talking points, Dan. What are you most looking forward to? And great to see you, by the way.
And you fellas, absolute treat to be back on the program with you, and I hope you're doing all right. I'm just looking forward to seeing Australia in New Zealand playing Test cricket. It just doesn't happen often enough. 2016 was the last time the base and reserve, the sort of home of New Zealand cricket, got to see these 2 sides play. And the other thing, it's not what I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping for that New Zealand can actually find find a way to show their true selves when they play their big brother across the Tasman, because unfortunately, far too often, New Zealand seem to have a bit of a mental block against the Aussies, and hopefully 2024 can be a little bit different.
Speaking about the best of New Zealand, one player who I think there's a question mark on his fitness, but also a little bit on his form. He's a fantastic player, Devon Conway. Are you expecting him to be fit? Is there a question on his place? His form has been a little bit, up and down. But first and foremost, are we expecting Devon Conway to be fit?
Well, I had the luxury of actually seeing Devon Conway at a function just a few hours ago, and he gave me one of those quizzical looks. We were at the official welcome of the Australians and New Zealanders at Premier House with the Prime Minister, and I was pointing towards his left thumb, Harmy, that had a sort of a black cast over it, just the thumb itself, and he gave me the old the sort of wobble of the head to suggest it wasn't looking too good. I finally got to chat to him, and he actually used the words 50-50. Which would be alarming to New Zealand, because Devon Conway needs to be at his best, not Devon Conway of the last 3 or 4 months. It was actually against England in the World Cup, Harmy, that magnificent 150 odd, I'm sure you all remember. But from then on in, he has really battled. And it was only in the first T20 international, just a few days ago, that he scored his first half century in any form of the game since. So in all likelihood, if New Zealand are to beat Australia, you can't help but envision Devon Conway playing a significant role in that. So A, we need him fit, and B, we need him back to form.
Yeah, if he's not fit or if he's not back to form, there's also a question mark on Blundell. Do they then bring a batter in who's in form, and does potentially Tom Latham have to take the gloves?
Well, they would have Tom Latham very much in their thinking as far as that is concerned. Tom Blundell is going to stay in the middle order. The good thing about the batting cover this time, they've actually got I wouldn't call him a specialist, but by the fact that he's heeded the call so often, Will Young, he would naturally slide into the top of the order if Devon Conway's unavailable. So there'd be no duress really on Tom Latham to keep, thankfully, and Blundell can stay in the middle order. I think there's a very good argument that Will Young should play in this lineup, batting at number 6. I look at that Australian side and I just see the strength in that bowling lineup. And this is no disrespect to that Australian top 6, the current one, but it doesn't strike fear in your heart of some of the Australian top 6s we've seen over the years. The West Indies might have exposed a soft underbelly in that lineup, but how do you cope with a bowling attack with every single one of that, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse with 250 wickets plus? The New Zealand batting versus the Australian bowling always seems to be the vital element of these series, and I don't think it rings any truer than this one.
Dan, one man who hasn't produced his best form against Australia, one of a couple actually, is Kane Williamson, the skipper. Presumably having filled his boots against South Africa's village team with 300s, and he'll be feeling ready to finally show his best against Australia. And also, I just love the story about him playing his 100th test at the same time as Tim Southee. They played their 50th together as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did indeed, and they'll join the likes of Taylor, Fleming, McCullum, Vittori, and that select group of New Zealanders reaching 100 tests. It's a long slog for New Zealanders to reach 100 tests. We just don't play often enough, the purists on this side of the world would say. But you're right, Kane Williamson hasn't been in vintage form. He took New Zealand to Australia in 2019 and really struggled as that team sort of fractured apart when their confidence should have been sky high as they were exposed. But he has just been in serene form. In fairness, man, as he got 400s against South Africa. He got 3 in the test and also 1 in a session, just for laughs. Just for laughs on a very slow surface, guys. He was gesticulating the whole innings. He wasn't happy with himself, but guess what? The guy ends up with 100. My new favourite Kane Williamson stat is the last time he was dismissed between 50 and 100 harm. He talk about conversion rates was back in February 2020. Wow. The only time he's got past 50 and not got on to make 100, he was 52 not out in the World Test Championship final. He's got 11 hundreds and 4 double hundreds in that time. He scored over 2,000 runs in that time. He is, and I know you guys have seen him. You saw him at the Basin Reserve score a brilliant 100 against England in that epic game in February 2023, which was on talkSPORT. New Zealand are just lapping it up. We know time is not on his side. He's just the picture of serenity. And hopefully he can get back to scoring runs against Australia. He scored runs against the Manners. He scored 100 in Australia. And we just hope he's able to carry on this quite ridiculous form that we've got to enjoy over the last 2 or 3 years especially. Now 32 Test hundreds. Like me as growing up as a cricket fan, I would have told you were barking mad if we were going to have one New Zealander reach 20 Test match hundreds. This guy's now got 32 in 98 tests.
Yeah, it's amazing. He is a wonderful player. We had the pleasure of having him on our show a couple of months ago, and as good a player as he is and a good a person as he's obviously even better. He was a brilliant guest for us, and we thanked him for coming on, and we said we wish you well in the foreseeable future. And to be fair, he's not looked back. He's been absolutely brilliant. And somebody else who's not looked back, how about Ranchi Ravindra? We seen him on talkSPORT for the first time when I think New Zealand were in Pakistan. I think he batted number 7. He was the second choice spin bowler. Then Durham trying to sign him. I remember Durham tried to sign him, and then it went on hold. It went on ice, and he couldn't play. Then he did play, got a double 100 for Durham. So yeah, he's in ridiculous form after the World Cup as well.
Well, my hometown bias to Wellington is generally strong. It's been particularly strong with this player since really I first laid eyes on him. There was so much noise coming through the Wellington junior ranks. Wellington, despite by its geography and climate, it's rubbish before Christmas. Club cricket is played on artificial tracks most of the time, have not had a history of developing international batsmen. But this guy is just, he's frighteningly good. For a number of years, he was teasing us. He'd score the most magnificent 40, 50 or 60. You could just see it. And it was always just a matter of time. And he just exploded onto the cricketing world at that World Cup. New Zealand failed to make the most of that momentum. Bizarrely didn't pick him for a test series in Bangladesh, where I think he had an argument to actually start ahead of Sodhi as just a frontline spinner. But thankfully, sanity has prevailed. Henry Nicholls had to make way after a long lean patch, particularly away from home. And, well, a sign of a quality player is getting a chance. And he came in and scored 240 against Manners' Village South African attack, who, in fairness, Manners, I thought, battled bravely, didn't give much away, and it was still hard work for Ravindra. And we just hope it's sort of the past, the present, and the future with him and Williamson in the same lineup, and only New Zealanders can dream of 2 world-class batsmen. It hasn't happened much over the years.
Well, I have to say that New Zealand played brilliantly against a South African team that did try hard, but the result is exactly what South Africa deserved for their maladministration. But that's another story for another time. For now, Dan, it's been brilliant to talk to you and to see you again. Enjoy the series. I'm sure you will, and you know who everyone in England will be supporting, don't you?
Yes, yeah, exactly, very much. And we can feel that love. I'll finish off. I just hope New Zealand can reveal their true selves in front of Australia. New Zealand's had a proud history against Australia. I think the early 80s to 90s, we beat them 4 times at home, won a series away from home. But the last 10 test matches since we last won a test in New Zealand in 1993, it's nine losses and 1 draw in a game we were following on in. And thankfully, the Wellington weather revealed its true self. So New Zealand cricket fans are just desperate just to see a victory against Australia again on our shores. So hopefully we're celebrating alongside you when that happens at some stage in the series, we hope.
That was New Zealand cricket commentator and a great friend of talkSPORT's Dan McHardy talking to us live from Wellington. All right, so that's the thoughts from the Black Caps camp. Let's find out how another colleague who's been with us throughout the last month or so, Jarrod Kimber, has been having a look at how Australia's preparations are going.
The 2 most interesting things for me is probably Steve Smith and how he will continue as an opener. Everyone, I think after 3 innings, everyone had been like, oh, this is a terrible mistake, we shouldn't do it. And then, of course, he comes out and plays probably one of his best ever Test match innings. Carries his bat. Of course, he carried his bat in the fourth time he ever opens in a Test match, or 3rd time, whatever it was. But how is it going to go overseas? How's it going to go on grassy wickets and all those sorts of things? How's it going to go when he does it, in longer series going forward? We know he doesn't sleep. Like, will he not sleep for a month? All these sorts of things I think are worth having a look at. He wants to do it, so he's going to do it because that's how Australian cricket works. Steve Smith asked for it and he gets it. But Matt Renshaw's in the squad, and I don't think that's an accident. I still believe that they will give Smith this entire series, but I'd love to see how he'll go against some very good New Zealand bowlers on maybe occasionally helpful pitches.
Does Michael Neser make your all-time great Australian 11 that will never play a dozen Test matches, or even probably half a dozen?
This is not probably the time to go into a big chat about the great Matthew Innes, who you've probably never heard of at all, and how he missed out. But I think you're right. In another era, he would have played a little bit more. How much worse than Michael Kasprowicz or Andy Bickle is Michael Neser, and he can probably bat better than both of them as well. Currently, do you know his bowling average is at the moment, Michael Neser?
It's low.
Yeah, 16 in Test cricket. He might end up keeping it there, though, to be fair. Scott Boland's got ruined. Akshar Patel's got ruined. So, it might help him from that point of view. I think he's a wonderfully talented cricketer. They keep taking him to places like England and New Zealand, but also with the thought of who are you going to drop, right? And they don't like resting their bowlers from Test matches as much as maybe England do. So, and they can't rest Pat Cummins. So they're in a situation where I don't think they'll play Michael Neser. And he's not really... This was always the problem. Do you remember Chad Sayers played for Australia? Chad Sayers was a fantastic bowler. The problem was Chad Sayers would come in and he would have to replace Mitchell Starc or Josh Hazlewood or Pat Cummins, right? And he wasn't like any of them. He came in to replace Mitchell Starc, and I thought, well, how is that a like for like? Chad Sayers is like a 6'1" outswing bowler, and Michael Neser is a bit the same. It's like, if you want to try something different, you'd have to drop one of the others. Otherwise, it never quite fits, and you'd be better off with maybe, Jai Richardson or, Lance Morris or Spencer Johnson or someone like that coming in. And unfortunately, Michael Neser's too good, so he sort of sticks around and never plays. But you're right. Is he the Martin Love of his generation? Someone has to be the Martin Love of their generation. It's not you or me.
No, it isn't. And very quickly, finally, the World Test Championship and reaching the final. I think Australia might have to win this little series 2-0, depending how they go against India, of course, at the end of the year. And the other thing is that why do New Zealand never produce their best against Australia when Australia visit?
Well, Jim Maxwell will probably say they're afraid of Australia. I'm not sure that's quite true, but he will say that. There's obviously a very complicated history between Australia and New Zealand. They beat them in 1947 when they bowled them out for 50 or whatever it was in that entire Test match almost. And Australia didn't regard that as a Test match. And it wasn't just that New Zealand was afraid of playing Australia. Australia were like, what's the point in playing New Zealand? So it's a complicated history compared to some other nations out there. But yeah, the other side of the World Test Championship, I think that I have no idea because you were having you said it with such confidence. You're such a brilliant broadcaster of, I think Australia need to win this series. And it's just like, you have no idea. John Norman said that to you. You probably didn't even look up the table. You were just like, that sounds like a good line. I think the issue for Australia and India is that they have to play each other coming up, which is also what John Norman said. And so when two major teams who are both a chance of playing in the final, the World Test Championship, have to play each other, they might split points, which actually allows a spoiler team to come in. Yeah. I haven't looked at it enough to see if that is the case, but Australia losing to the West Indies was massive, right, for their World Test Championship because they had those games penciled in as wins. And now New Zealand play a couple of good Test matches. India come with a strong team. Who knows? They might not be able to defend their own title.
That was Australian cricket writer and a member of the talkSPORT commentary team, Jarrod Kimber there. And we'll bring you reaction to this week's first test on next week's show. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Durham Hall of Famer and world number 1, Steve Harmison. Next up, we'll round up the week's other stories in Part 4 and also speak live with Multan Sultans fast bowling coach, Cath Dalton, to get her thoughts on the first couple of weeks of the PSL. You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And a reminder, we'll bring you live and exclusive ball-by-ball commentary of the fifth test between India and England from Dharamshala next Thursday, with our coverage getting underway at 3:30. But I'm delighted to say here in Part 4, we're joined as promised by Cath Dalton, Multan Sultans bowling coach. First of all, we have to say, Cath, that in case our listeners aren't aware, and our viewers, in fact, on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel, that your team, the Sultans, are top of the table. You made a cracking start, won 4 out of 5. So how are you, and how's the PSL?
The PSL is unbelievable manners. I think the amount of support in the country and people lining the streets when we're going to games and coming back from games has been incredible. But also to just get off to a winning start. We had 5 games at home, so that was quite nice. So we spent 2 weeks in Multan, and having those 5 games at home really allowed us to settle and understand the conditions. But to be top of the table at this stage, at the halfway point, is a brilliant start. We couldn't have asked for anything better.
Yeah, Multan's probably a better experienced manners than I first went to Multan. I played in the first test match in Multan in 2005, and I don't think Multan was ready, never mind the ground, the hotels, everything that comes with it. But a lot's been said about the PSL. Cath, and a lot of people that I've spoke to about their Pakistan experience. Rob Key went out there and commentated. You speak to the likes of Dominic Cook, Nick Knight, who have been out there. Mark Butcher's there now. They say what a contrasting difference is, and they spent a lot of time out of international cricket. Did Pakistan playing at their home grounds? But what's the venues like now? Is it? They say it's a wonderful place to go and tour now.
It's absolutely incredible. I think the hospitality here is something that I haven't experienced before. Everybody's just there wanting to help. Obviously, being a female coach, wasn't sure how that was going to go down, but that's been received really well. But as you said, they just love their cricket. It is a massive passion here. And we've had, I think, 2 full houses for games. And the noise they create, even if it's not full, there's just the pure noise they create it just shows you how much passion, as I said, they have for the game.
Cath, the fast bowlers are going well. You've got 3 of your men, Muhammad Ali, David Willey and Usama Mir, in the top 5 wicket takers. But Alex Hartley's also working out there with you. She's also part of the team, working with the spinners.
Yes, she is. So she's assistant spin bowling coach to David Parsons. She's doing a great job. Usama Mir is a fantastic leg spin bowler. He's done a few things, I believe, technically in his actions. Before the camp, we had a pre-tournament camp, and he's just bowling beautifully at the moment. So he's been someone that we bring on after the power play who does seem to take quite a few wickets in that spell where the field is spread. And yeah, Alex is doing brilliantly, and we're both really enjoying the journey.
And tell about the tournament. The aspirations for the tournament. You're going well. Everything's rosy at this moment in time. It is I wouldn't say it's a long tournament, but every tournament you have a bump in the road. Senior players in the group. How is the group going? As front runners, leaders of the pack, shall we say?
I feel like when you look at our team and then you look at the other teams, we seem to be really together as a unit. And I think credit to the management and our owner, Ali Tareen, he's created this incredible environment that everybody feels comfortable with each other in. But we've also got a really good leader in Rizwan. He's somebody who just steps up and he just lifts everybody's spirits. We've also got Dave Willey as our vice captain. And as such an experienced T20 bowler, he's really helping out with the seamers as well. It's not just me. So that fill has been great. And obviously we did lose a game, only by 6 runs, but we did lose a game. And it was really good last night to bounce back from that and come out with a win and leave Multan 4-1, so to speak.
I know that you've been to Pakistan before. You had a couple of trips out there coaching, and that led to this appointment with Multan. And so you'll be used to things culturally. Well, not completely used to, but it's not unfamiliar with. What about the blend of cultures within the team, within the squad, and international T20 franchise cricket? Are you involved as part of the management in blending the different cultures?
Yeah, I think that's been something that's come quite easily to us. We've We've done quite a few kind of team building things as well. And obviously having that pre-tournament camp was, I think, vital for us to get to know each other. And the longer we're going on in the tournament, and of course, when you're winning, it is a little easier to build that camaraderie as a team. But it's been brilliant. And from a fast bowling perspective, the local players have received me incredibly well. And it just, that rapport is so important when you go into franchise cricket, because you don't want to go in and start changing loads of things. You want to make sure you've got a good rapport, and then you build that relationship and hopefully get the best out of the bowlers that you've got.
And the crowds, we've seen them on English TV over here. That it's well received. It's Pakistan, India. They just love their cricket, but the crowd seems to be getting bigger and better, and that's something that your team is going to have to put up with as they go through the tournament if they want to be successful, because the latter part of the tournament, then the knockout stages, and hopefully Multan get to the final. There's going to be some big crowds and massive atmospheres. How do your group feel playing in front of hopefully the packed houses?
Yeah, I think we're coping with it very well. Obviously, we haven't been away from home yet. We're playing Lahore Qalandars tomorrow night, so that's going to be a new experience for us. But we had a young 19-year-old emerging player, Aftab, played last night, and he was brilliant. And we weren't sure how. You never know how a player's going to react to that kind of environment, but he was so cool and calm, and he's hardly played any first-class cricket, and he's bowling to Riley Russo, and he gets him out, and he's giving it to the crowd. It was fantastic. So I think they're really relishing that atmosphere and the euphoria around the tournament.
That was Multan Sultans coach, fast bowling coach, Cath Dalton, and fantastic to have her as part of the talkSPORT commentary team over the last couple of years, and also now that she's in a senior position in the PSL. Fantastic to catch up with her. Okay, it's that time of week, Harmy. The final word. I wanted to mention Rishabh Pant. I mean, it's a fantastic recovery from a life-threatening car crash over a year ago. He's going to come back with Delhi as a batsman, a specialist batter only initially. So terrific for him. But I also wanted to mention a man who made his reputation as a young cricketer, Tristan Stubbs for South Africa, as a T20 specialist. He was barely out of school, 21 years old, and smashed it in South Africa's domestic T20 competition, and was boxed very much as a white ball specialist. Played for South Africa in the T20 team, was barely mentioned as a first-class or potential Test cricketer. And in the final round of South Africa's four-day competition, he scored a triple century, only the 12th South African to score a triple hundred, Tristan Stubbs. And the great thing is, he said it was the best innings of his life, and that's all he wants to play, or it's his favourite format.
Yeah, I'd seen that, and I've seen what he had said, and seen parts of that innings. And when he went to 100 and when he went to the triple 100. Rishabh Pant, it's great to see him back first and foremost. We've all seen the pictures of that car. How somebody got out of that car alive, I've got no idea. So thankfully he's in one piece and he's alive, and he is able to be the best Rishabh Pant, the person that we all love, because he's a colourful character and we love watching him play cricket. So to see him back in the IPL, I think that's a beauty for the IPL. Forget whatever happens, whether he gets runs, he gets gets back to wicket keeping. Just great to see him back on the field. But if you take you back, Manners, I just want to take you back to the interview we did with David Bedingham. And can you remember what David Bedingham said? We'll have to get Scott, our producer, to maybe dig this out for further down the line. He said, when you talk about franchise cricket and you talk about the SA20, he says, I was just talking to Stubbsy the other day, and we talked about how much he loves playing and wants to play Test cricket. He mentioned Tristan Stubbs wanting to play Test match cricket, and that was probably 4 weeks ago before he made that triple century. So for Tristan Stubbs not only to make the triple century, then to come out and say that's the best format, he wants to play Test match cricket, good on the boy.
And it was longer than that, I think, And yeah, you're right. Let's just hope that he played one Test match against India on the world's most seamer-friendly pitch at Newlands. It was he made 3-0, and it was over by after lunch on day 2. So hopefully more runs to come in Test cricket for Tristan Stubbs. You've been listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler and the number 1 in the world, Steve Harmison. And if you've missed any of the show or you wish to catch up, you can, as always, download the podcast from the Following On feed, available as always from the free talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back at the same time next week to look ahead to the 5th Test between India and England. Every ball, of course, live and exclusive here on talkSPORT 2.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.